point first, please.
Yes, Truman decides to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and 2 days later on Nagasaki.
If this was a middle school class, I would say, after I snap, please repeat Hiroshima.
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 One more time, Hiroshima.
Hiroshima.
Nagasaki.
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 Second bullet point for me, please, Sheldon.
100,000 people died.
Third bullet point for me, please, Anika.
The Japanese surrender.
Excellent. And the last one for me, Cherish.
People begin to see America as a new world power.
Excellent job. 10 more seconds. This is what it looked like when we dropped the bombs. There is nothing left in these two cities. Families were ripped apart, all these things. I have a friend who used to teach with me, and her parents survived Hiroshima, and the effects of it actually skip a generation, so she still has to get radiation testing, and one leg is actually smaller than the other. So lots of effects. Any questions? Stop me at any point. All right, at your tables, I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes silently, and then 2.5 minutes with your table. Check the time on the board. I'll remind you after 2.5 minutes is up. Doing our check for understanding questions. Here we go. Does not have to be complete sentences. Just get the information down. 2.5 minutes is up. You may talk and discuss at your tables. Should hear more chat.
We're really good students.
How did it affect you?
Oh, how did, okay. I was like, what?
Great question. Pause, drag me, real quick. Voices off. Voices off, drag me. Ashley Jones. She just asked a great question. She said, number 3, what was the impact of dropping the atomic bombs on America? Were they dropped on America? No. So what effect did the dropping on Japan have on America? Hopefully we know that. 30 seconds, guys.
America what?
He'll give a direction and he'll immediately
Cold calling on someone in 15, warm calling on Viso after that. And that's 3. Voices off 2. Kowski 1. 0. Canapa. Number 2 for me. What was the impact of dropping the atomic bomb on Japan?
There were a couple different impacts. My team and I discussed how hundreds of thousands of people died, and the Japanese eventually surrendered, and then America emerged as a superpower. Oh, on Japan.
Viso.
I was talking to
Number
Friday.
2.
I'm going to steal Canapa's answer and say that the effect. Sorry, for number 2. Wait, didn't Canapa just do number 2?
Yeah, and one more from me.
It destroyed the 2 cities of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and Japanese surrendered.
Excellent. Rob, what was the impact on America?
The impact on America was that people began to see America as a new world power.
Push more than just give me the notes. Push more.
Is it because I looked at them, Mr. Kohler?
Yep.
Because
you flipped me off.
people did not anticipate it due to the fact that it was a top secret project. I think it had a shocking effect probably on other countries that America was able and willing to do it. And so not only were they seen as a superpower, but a country who was like a force to be reckoned with.
Excellent job. He went from a basic answer to a mastery or advanced answer, just like that. Turn your page. Differing opinions on the board. There's a cartoon and there's a man on an island saying boat, and the boat is saying land, in two different ways of looking at things. You have two essays at your desk. One is an essay with the perspective of Hiroshima as victimization, and the other one is Hiroshima as triumph. Take 5 minutes, silently read, looking for what parts of it give you evidence of the perspective the author is trying to portray, and answer the questions at the bottom. 5 minutes. The Kiera is annotating as she goes, underlining important things. Three and a half minutes. As I walk around, 90% of us are filling all the lines and writing as much as we can. 10% of us just got a 4-word sentence. I'm just gonna get the better rate. 30 seconds. Seconds. Take volunteers in 3, 2, 1. What was the perspective from the Japanese? Someone, 1 to 2 sentences, hand. Yes, ma'am.
It was a very extreme response, and that that it was a very extreme response, and that yes, it's argued that the bombing was necessary to end the war on Hiroshima, but the fact that they then did it 3 days later was that much devastation was so unnecessary.
Excellent. I don't know if anyone noticed it, but she actually synthesized both documents and gave the Japanese perspective, but also gave the American rebuttal, and then came back to the Japanese perspective. Would anyone like to build off that? All right? Someone give me the American perspective, which she kind of hit on. Yes, sir, Mr. Daniel.
We wanted to show the world that we had the bomb. We wanted to show them it's the world's most powerful weapon if we needed to. We had to assert ourselves. Our own allies during the war were we knew were going to be our enemies in a matter of weeks. We needed to make sure we had American.
Building off Jasmine Campa.
The Japanese were never going to surrender without the bombing. They were too stuck in their ways to surrender, so we had to end this global conflict in order to protect our people and their people.
Building off Campa.
Jasmine said what I was gonna say.
All right, let's do a quick pulse check. Raise your hand if you think we should remember it from the American perspective before we even go to the documents. Warlords, raise your hand if you think we should remember it from the Japanese perspective. All right, it'll be interesting to see if any of us change our minds as we go into the documents. Go ahead and turn your page, but lesson cycle break. Canada, take over. You said you were gonna.
Oh, all right, we're gonna pause now. We have just done all of the activating and building background knowledge part of the lesson. On your packet, you should be on page something, 7. Jot down right now what needs to exist in the materials for an activating and building background knowledge part of the lesson, and what were the teacher actions. If you have any questions that you want to ask in the discussion part of this, write down the questions that you have as well. We're not going to talk about anything right now in order to try to keep the flow of the lesson. Just jot down your thoughts and your questions. And then Kohler, whenever people seem like they're done.
Take 30 seconds.
30 seconds,
You want a minute?
at least.
2 minutes.
Minute.
Pulse check, 1 or 2 more minutes. This for 0. That's right. All right, everyone should be on source 1 by now. And if you were in my class, you better know what is the first thing we do when we look at a document. Ms. Flowers,
Wait, what?
what is the first thing we do when we look at a document? What? What do we do?
Source.
Source. We're going to look at the byline, and then there's some questions we're going to ask at the bottom there. We're looking, does this source help us to answer our compelling question, which once again, how should we remember the dropping of the atomic bomb? Source 1, read it for me. Metters. Just the source byline.
Source 1. My division, like most of the
No,
ones,
just the byline, the source line.
Paul Fusil, a World War II soldier.
Yeah, source 1, thank God for the atomic bomb. 1990, Paul Fusil, a World War II veteran. we have these questions below us to help us source. Eventually, if we're doing this correctly, and I'm a decent teacher, you'll be asking these without having these at the bottom of your source. We're going to build off of them. First it says, who wrote this? Stephen?
Paul, Fusel, a World War II veteran.
And is there anything we can glean from this source line that could tell us about the author's perspective?
Yes.
So who just said yes?
I did.
Great, Ashley. Why?
Thank you. He's fighting on the American side, so I'm gaining that he's from the perspective, and I mean, aside from the title, he's from the perspective that the atomic bomb was a good thing for World War II, or for the ending of World War II.
Excellent job. Now, we're not going to be able to answer all of these from every byline or source line. It says, why was it written? We're going to have to read the source to do that. When was it written? Hannah.
1990?
Was that at the time of World War II?
No.
No, so this is a different time, which we need to think in our mind. Does that tell us perspective? Where was it written? Do we know yet? No, we don't know that yet either. And is the source reliable? Why or why not? We're going to get to that at the end. So everyone tracking your source where it says my division. Shelby, loud and clear for me, please.
My division, like most of
Need all eyes. Go.
My division, like most of the ones transferred from Europe, was going to take part in the invasion at Honshu, an island of Japan. People who preferred invasion to aid bombing, seeming to have no intention of proceeding to the Japanese front themselves. I have already noted what a few more days would mean to the luckless troops and sailors on the spot. On Okinawa, only a few weeks before Hiroshima, 123,000 Japanese and Americans killed each other. War is immoral, war is cruel.
You read it one more time. A lot of times when we read these documents, reading it more than one time helps us to think. We're going to go back to the source line and think, now that I've read it, now that I see the titles, thank God for the atomic bomb. Now that I know that Paul Fusel is a World War II veteran, in my mind I think there might be some bias there. He is not a neutral party. He was in the war, and he's already praising the bomb. So in my mind I already say, this is probably going to support the American perspective. And as we read through, we want to make sure, is my assumption correct? One more time. My division, like most of the ones transferred from Europe, was going to take part in the invasion at Honshu, an island of Japan. The people who preferred invasion to A-bombing seemed to have no intention of proceeding to the Japanese front themselves. I have already noted that a few more days would mean to the luckless troops and sailors on the spot. On Okinawa, only a few weeks before Hiroshima, 123 Japanese Americans killed each other. War is immoral, war is cruel. Does what we just read lend credence to my assumption? Does it support the assumption that there might be bias from this guy? He has a certain perspective. This is not a neutral party. Ashley, you're nodding your head. Why?
Because he was there and he's talking about how yeah, he was there and he is using quite emotional language as well, so that implies bias.
Snap, you agree? So according to Paul Fusel, factual question, how many people died in the Battle of Okinawa? Drew?
According to Paul Fusel, 123,000.
Excellent job. I love how you restated the question and gave me the factual information. And does this source support the narrative of Hiroshima as victimization or Hiroshima as a triumph? I think we can all agree. Which one is it?
Triumph.
Triumph. Excellent job. Go ahead and turn your page. This source is a little bit different. It's got the source line, then it's got a contextualization piece and a paragraph. What I want us to do is at your tables, choose one person to read and go through the sourcing and the actual reading. And in 3 minutes, we're going to come back and I want you to tell me and model it just as I did, how to source this document. 3 minutes, go.
Stopping Russia in 1980.
James Burns, one of Truman's advisors on the atomic bomb, in addition to defeating Japan, he wanted to see the Soviet Union expand its influence in Asia and limit its influence in Europe. Manhattan Project scientist Leo Szilard met with Burns on May 28, 1945. Leo Szilard wrote about his meeting with Burns in the 1980s. Burns was concerned about Russia's proposal. So just, okay, sorry.
Manhattan Project scientist Leo
Did you say
Szilard.
that? Oh, we did? Okay. Burns was concerned about Russia's post-war behavior. Russian troops had moved into Hungary and Romania, and Burns thought it would be very difficult to persuade Russia to withdraw her troops from these countries. That Russia might be more manageable if impressed by American military might, and that a demonstration of the bomb might impress Russia.
20 seconds.
Mr. Kohler, are we answering sourcing questions as well?
We're gonna come back up, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Does anybody have an idea of how the office is hoping for
And back to me in 3, 2, 1. Boys, I'll try to real quick. One thing that I do want to highlight, our table in the back here, Andrew, Julie, Rob, and Vito, all of them as they're going through are annotating the source line and trying to find out, is there bias in there? I didn't say that beforehand because I'd like to say that I was going to see who could do it and who didn't, but I completely forgot to say it. Very important to be annotating that. Someone, let's see here, Kofsky, model for me how you go through the sourcing.
For which part? The entire document?
No, just the byline and the context piece.
Okay, well, the first thing I would do is I would obviously see what date and time period the document was written in and what occupation or what information they give me about the person who wrote it. So I see Leo Szilard, or Szilard, however that's pronounced, is a Manhattan Project scientist. I can already take a piece of information that can either be confirmed or not supported in the context or the contextualization piece when I get a second. So then I would read that. I saw that James Burns is one of Truman's advisors on the atomic bomb. In addition to defeating Japan, he wanted to keep the Soviet Union from expanding its influence in Asia, which was a goal of the United States, so it could be potentially confirming his Manhattan Project scientist role. From expanding its influence in Asia to limit its influence in Europe. Manhattan Project scientist Leo Szilard met with Burns on May 28, 1945, and Leo Szilard wrote about his meeting with Burns in 1980. So I see that this conversation did take place during the time of the event, but now that it's after the time of the event, it is being reflected on, which could change the reliability of that source as well.
Excellent job. Snap your brief. Anyone else have anything they'd like to build off on or touch on? I thought that was pretty good. All right. What I want us to do, when he went through those questions, without like formally going through them, he went through them in his head and he hit on almost all of them. Which is an excellent job. What I want us to do is the 40-minute mark. So what I want us to do for the next 10 minutes, go through the remaining documents with your tables, go through the sourcing questions and answer the guiding questions at the bottom of the page. After these 10 minutes, we are going to come back together and we are going to debate whose perspective we should actually look through. 10 minutes on the clock. As a table level 1, let's go.
So the first perspective was somebody who was a soldier on the American. He was worried about the Russian who thought that it was a great idea. So the second one was someone who's on Truman's jury. Yeah, I just spelled it too. He also think that it's a great idea because he was worried about that project. And he thought all the reasons of why it wasn't going to end in Russia and stuff like that. Alright, so I kind of just
What did you say?
He's also in support of the atomic bombs. He's a scientist on the Manhattan Project.
and he had all these reasons why it made sense, like, to do it. Okay, so it was two things he was for. Let's see what this weird one's about.
Survivor story, so that's obviously the.
And then name was next, like, yeah. I don't read out loud, just real slow.
If your table chooses to work independently, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so it's kind of like this and that, there's something I want to take on first.
not? Time check, 6 minutes.
Which store should you remember adopted?
So what you guys did is so we don't know how those like it's, I mean it's just.
Well, he was 13 when it happened, and it was a joke that was in the museum that was given a story. So I figured if, I know it's a reliable source, especially if it's primary. Yeah, I mean, it's a primary source.
Oh, bad directions. I did not point out for the sourcing questions. You only have to answer 2. It says answer 2 to make the most sense to answer the compelling question.
I
Waste of time.
reliable just to see what their somebody told me that because in school, you know, there's and then you get like all you have to write your name on paper and
No way. No.
when I read his story,
Everything that's so
it's just like
awesome.
I'm really hard to like read it, like
It's just
I
like,
did fail.
all you have to do is like, yeah, that's pretty awesome actually.
Personally, I think
Take your opinions out of this. Use the documents.
We're not reading with like this. So we're if you look at a question. So if you go to the
Time check, 3.5
where it
minutes.
says like for even that depending on who would express the situation was sufficient, like if you so if you know that you not correct that like I still don't think we should go on that correctly, but at the same time like you they were also including so many civilians in addition to the military, that like the women and children also like there was a huge
But what type of government did you make?
We push you to make sure that your evidence is based on your argument. Coming from these sources, bringing background knowledge, but in a second you're going to learn any evidence from the documents.
for the
I don't think so.
like foreigners have been trained and indoctrinated for resistance with limited mixture weapons, like that.
Yep, and this is definitely, but in a second you're going to have to argue one way or the other.
Reason why you saying what you get.
I would support that from the documents.
Yeah, you. I don't know if you know exactly which that you use.
You also have to take into consideration the type of
2.5 minutes. Get through as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a really heavy story.
Purposeful crowd.
Yeah, those
It just follows the lives of 7 people and like what happened like that.
Oh, in a book. Wow, that must be incredible.
I'll give you guys the title.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that.
So wait, what's your stance? What do you think? He's from
I think we should hold on to your shit, but I also don't think we should get selfish.
You are so mean.
Like people,
You are so mean. Really bad. Only really bad.
somewhere in the Middle East that you can celebrate. It's very different because for them that's a triumph. Even though there's no very conspiracy going on.
amongst families. I think they always remember that it's perspective, it's violence, it's who is benefiting us, where we have to get our feelings. At the end of the lesson, is critically if they have the evidence to support however they feel, this is there's no right or wrong. Based on the conversation, I don't know what it is. We all bought two tickets. So they was like, no, for yeah.
30 seconds, guys. And back to me in 3. Back to me in 2. Voices up in 1. Shovel eyes. Really don't want to do it about that. Thank you, middle school teachers. Based on our knowledge from the sources, remembering what you said earlier when we did a pulse check and pre-survey, which perspective are we more sympathetic towards? Raise your hand if you were more sympathetic to the Hiroshima as a triumph perspective. So we went down from 4 warlords to 1.
No, sorry, I'm still with you.
Oh, 2. Andrew, build off that. Tell us why.
Well, I certainly feel sympathy for the people and what they experienced in Japan. It was very horrible. But my belief, rightly or wrongly, is that my grandfather could have died in Japan, and since he's my grandfather and I'm glad he's here, I'm glad I'm more sympathetic towards, I guess, the triumph narrative. If we paint it, if we present it that way.
What from the documents would support you?
Well, I guess my grandfathers like Paul Fussell, who lived, at least in his mind, because of the bomb and the fact that it was dropped. And I guess my grandfather would be comparable to him, and I'm glad he's around.
Stephen, build off that.
Thank you. To build off what Lisa said, I also have a grandfather that would have most likely not made it had we attempted a mainland invasion. I look at it more honestly from the perspective of what Paul Fussell says, as well as statements from the initial building background knowledge sets that statistically more people could have died initially through an invasion if Japan had legitimately gone through with their plans to fight to the last person, militarizing the entire population.
Someone who disagrees. Hiroshima as victimization. Help me out, Jazz.
Black America was too aggressive, in the sense of the second bombing, and then how it came so soon after it never gave Japan enough time to recuperate or respond to the first bombing, and then that the second bombing, I feel like it was unnecessary, and all the people that are still being affected from the survivor story, I'm guessing this is source 3, from all the people that are still being affected by unnecessary force.
Yes, ma'am. Ashley?
We have a legacy now with like nuclear weapons in the world, and it's really, really expensive to for countries to keep a weapon.
Someone with evidence from the sources. Julie?
I think that the piece about Russia's post-war behavior, wanting to stop Russian aggression, I think is, while it's very short, very important. I think that's a huge piece of why we did it, is like to establish our global power in the future, to avoid, to kind of let every other country know, like, don't mess with us, don't come for us, because this is what's going to happen to you after Japan attacks us. I also don't think it would be useful to have like a document from, you know, like the Yalta conference, because Russia was set to invade with us a few weeks later. So we're having this argument of whether it was necessary, American troops at stake, but if we had waited a few weeks, we would have had allies in it, in the ground invasion of Russia, ground invasion of Japan, and I think that that's like an important part of the conversation that we forget a lot of times as history teachers, but it's essential because it's like sort of the beginning of the Cold War, of us making a stand like we don't want your help, we actually wanna let you know that you should be worried about us.
We'll dig deeper, two more here.
Based on sources 3 and 4, I'm more inclined to support the Japanese version of the story, just because they have a child who was telling his, you know, like he was a victim of it, and I guess like it being a child made me really sad. And then source 4 talks about all the deaths that happened, so I was more inclined to go with that version because it seems, well, all of it is biased, but the people who are talking for America, it's kind of like, it's hard to support it because of who they are.
Based on the perspective of the veteran and Kawamoto, the difference was, from what I've seen, is if the war had continued, there may have been more casualties on both sides, but they would have been soldiers fighting, whereas dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was civilian casualties, and they were non-combatant. So that is like a whole different. I sympathize more because it's a different type of death and devastation, because those people weren't even in a fight. Exactly.
Quickly, Stephen.
Thank you. I would like to, I want to speak on Jarrell's statement that the militarization, as from source 1, the 2 narratives actually would have led to all Japanese civilians becoming combatants, therefore potentially leading to all Japanese deaths if they had fought to the last person.
All right. Well, I really don't care which side you lean towards. That's not the case here. So at your tables, if you have a yellow packet, you are from the American perspective. If you have a blue packet, you are from the Japanese perspective. On the board are some directions. Stephen, with the loudest voice in here, read the first bullet point, please.
Thank you. You're a historical expert who specializes in either Japanese or American history. In particular, you are very familiar with the Japanese experiences of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
You know what, just continue. You got a great
To prepare for a discussion with a group of experts from the other country, go to the atomic bomb documents you just read. As you reread with your group, highlight or underline quotations, facts, images, information, etc. that supports your country's perspective as either Hiroshima as victimization or Hiroshima as triumph. Record your main points in the space in your packet.
Awesome. Okay, guys. In the space in your packet, you didn't notice, blue has Japanese. It tells you need to go back to the documents and find evidence to argue. We will debate shortly. Your evidence, as it says in here, should say document blank. Write your evidence down and what argument you can make from that document. We're going to do this for 5 minutes. Normally, guys, this would be a 2-day lesson cycle. So this would actually be the second day, and we're going a lot faster than we normally would. But we'll do 5 minutes to at least get one argument down. Canada.
Can you just clarify what the different colored papers mean, because both of them have the America and Japan on them?
You're right.
Sorry, I didn't have.
Once again, yellow is America, blue is Japan. Alright guys, take 5 minutes with your papers. Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
All about like is this sort of
One, they only did it to
obvious question about that, how reliable is
go from source 2.
maybe what's it
And one of the main reasons why they did this was just because they wanted to.
I think it's important to understand that the boarding school is moral because they were dropping off a lot. So
That's the reason in this one, so like West Russia was
Writing from the perspective of
West Russia,
that's the entire purpose.
Russia, and also Russia, command is Russia, and then also like get Russia from Russia. So my husband is
Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think obviously.
I get that, but like, there's, it's also more.
I don't think the removal of all the person.
We can definitely use that as context.
But that's
Try and push yourself to find an argument no one else has.
Oh, we can, okay, so I got a question. Because we use systemic bombing.
No, I'm trying to collect it.
Historic bombing of our
Okay. So how?
So the reason why we entered World War II is that Italy stayed neutral for the first like 3-4 years of the war because we didn't wish to conquer. But whenever Japan bombed Pearl Harbor because they were upset with our nation.
Yeah, but I agree with that.
That's when
There's a lot to get into it. It's
we're officially joining this war now because that's what we can do. So
we joined the war.
I trust it.
Yeah.
But trying to, like, all these things we're doing.
No, Russia was on. They switched into World War I from World War I.
Wrap up your arguments.
Very interesting.
So we're not going to World War II.
I'm just trying to point, like, you are looking at whatever perspective of whoever it is, but you're seeing it through your lens of like somebody else.
Wrap up your final thoughts in 10.
I'm more than teaching because like if you want
Cassia.
sorry.
All right, now we'll debate. We're gonna rush through this a little bit, guys, but lesson cycle break. Canapa.
On page whatever, spend a second to jot down. Wait, you put that in the wrong spot.
It's right there.
Did we reflect after document analysis? We did? Oh my goodness. But you haven't done the writing yet.
We're not there yet, because this is the lesson cycle break before synthesis.
This is, writing is part of synthesis.
You said writing was...
Discussion and writing are synthesis.
You're wrong. All right, now we're gonna do debate. So, steps in the debate. I am the final decider and can shut you up when I please. Japan will start with their first argument, and American hands will stay down until Japan is done speaking. America then has the option for rebuttal. After rebuttal, America will offer their first main argument. Japan hands stay down. Rinse and repeat. We're gonna actually get up moving. So if America, the yellow papers, would stand up with your packets and come stand on this side of the room. Japan, with your blue packets, stand on the window side of the room, and we're about to get started. Japan, I'm calling on someone from you first.
Oh, is somebody recording? Probably.
All right. I'll take a volunteer from Japan. It's probably going to be Jazz with your first main argument.
Okay. Ready?
Speak to them.
Good afternoon,
their second bombing. So I don't feel like it was part of them trying to end the war, because they were testing their nuclear powers. And we looked at the number of burns, 95%, which means these people were literally dying while they were still alive, just overly aggressive and uncalled for.
Rebuttal from America, Mr. Kuznavich.
More of a question to pose back to you. So I hear you say that the second bomb was unnecessary. So to me, that implies the first bomb then was necessary in order to send that message to Japan that the war needed to end and to make them surrender so that they can continue to kill their own citizens.
You wrote protocol, but I'll allow rebuttal from Japan. Do you have a response, Jess?
Okay, I do have a response. The first bomb was necessary in the sense that Japan was not going to surrender if the last citizen was at war. So that I do not disagree on. What I disagree on is their over-aggressiveness. The fact that America, in less than a week span, bombed again, which means they were not bombing to protect the global power of people. They were bombing to test their nuclear powers that they just discovered.
America, argument please. Andrew.
I would ask the question, if Japan had nuclear capabilities, would they have refrained from using the bomb on us? I would suggest the answer is no, because they did attack us preemptively at Pearl Harbor. Many of our American soldiers died in a similarly painful way.
Yeah.
But we're not going to use hypotheticals to justify the death of civilians.
Mr. Manuel.
Sorry, just to rebuttal to your point, we didn't, to continue this message as well, we didn't preemptively attack them. We warned them on several occasions, along with your Yalta allies, that they would face prompt and utter destruction, literally what the quote was, and if they didn't resign. And then we gave them a second warning after we dropped the first bomb, saying, surrender, or else we're gonna do it again. Like, we literally told them, we're gonna do this again, and they did not respond. So what do? We fulfilled our promise.
Amendment Japan.
They
Can
attacked
I
us.
say source this is?
No conference.
Based on-
6 months of newspaper articles.
All right, hush. Julie.
Using the sources though, in document 4, it did say that 105,000 Japanese people died in the bombing. But also in document 1, it says that in just the invasion of Okinawa, 123,000 people died. The island of Japan is significantly bigger than that. And also from the 2 narratives we read at the start of class, they talk about the way the government is planning to mobilize citizenry and fight to every last man, which is what happened in Okinawa. Like, civilians fought or suicided themselves before surrendering. The number of Japanese civilians who would have died in a ground invasion would have been even higher than the 105,000 that we killed. And I'm not saying killing 105,000 is what you want to do, but like, that's still saving lives in comparison to the 123,000 that were just on that small island of Okinawa.
All right, so we get to luncheon time. We're gonna break there. Everyone back to your desks. And 3. And 2. Ms. Flowers, quickly. Cops, your voices off track. And 1. 0. All right. I will defend my lesson cycle in a second when the camera goes off, but if this was a normal class, we'd finish the synthesis piece.